as I've said, the whistleblowers are like Toto in The Wizard of Oz, pulling the curtain back. And people are now seeing the wizard, which is this corrupt group. And they're also seeing that the mainstream media is projecting onto a screen their propaganda, which is not reality. What you get in the mainstream media has a hidden secret agenda. It wouldn't be there if people whose interests are behind that cabal is what they're called.
My name, as I said, was Paul Hellyer. I'm a former Minister of National Defense for Canada. I served in 3 governments during a total of 23 and a half years as a Member of Parliament. American people and the people of the world have a right to know what's going on because they're part of it. It's not just an isolated thing. I accept the invitation of Victor Vigiani, who's over here somewhere, and his cohort Mike Bird to speak to a symposium at the University of Toronto. And I said, UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. That gave me the dubious distinction of being the first person of cabinet rank in the G8 group of countries to say so unequivocally.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? I was just doing a little research. So what you just saw there was Karen Hudes, who was a World Bank whistleblower, and Paul Hellyer, Minister of Defense from Canada, who is probably the highest ranking person that I'm aware of to come forward. Next up is Robert Jameson. He was a U.S. Air Force nuclear missile targeting officer. That's a lot to fucking say.
If we're out on the road, we see a UFO, we do not go to the launcher, but instead to the nearest launch control facility. Also, we call job control and let them know what we're doing. If we're at a site and we're penetrating, then we have to stop what we're doing, remove ourselves from the site, call job control. We all have radio controls, radio contact with all these. Call to job control and wait for further instructions. Now, if we're at the site and we're doing our work, I have to take myself, my team, and the targeting tapes, go into the launcher, close the personnel hatch. Now, all the teams, before you go out into the field, will take with us an armed guard. That's just normal. We have to leave the one guard, armed guard, on top, all by himself, and he's supposed to report to job control or the launch control facility of what he was seeing.
There's also some testimony from dying retired CIA officer, and I don't have a name for him, but he does say some interesting things, so grain of salt, right?
As we get older and older, I'm 77 right now. You can't live forever, you know. So if this procedure I'm going to have to clean the blood doesn't work, then I've got probably a few more months to make it before my kidneys shut down, you know. So that's kind of why I'm kind of going along with the interview at this time.
You're seeing that what you went through is just too important for people not to know about.
Yeah. They called us in, went into the Oval Office, and President Eisenhower was there and Nixon, and they said, we called the people in from MJ-12, from Area 51 and S4, but they told us that the government had no jurisdiction over what they were doing. So being a general, past general, you didn't tell them to go to hell without any real good reason, you know. Mm-hmm. So he said, I want you and your boss to fly out there. I want you to give them a personal message. And he says, I want you to tell them, whoever is in charge, tell them that to get in, they have this week, coming week, to get into Washington and to report to me. And if they don't, I'm going to get the 1st Army from Colorado, and we're going to go over. We're going to take the base over. I don't care what kind of classified material you got. We're going to rip this thing apart.
Eisenhower was going to invade
Area 51. Yeah, with the 1st Army.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
It took us the 13 or 15 miles south to S4 and like different garage door openings. Okay. And in these garage door openings, they had like different saucer crafts. The very first one had the Roswell craft in. It was kind of crashed up, but apparently every alien that was in it died except for a couple.
Could they tell what the source of power was of this craft?
Yeah, it was like a reverse gravitational thing of some kind.
Charles Halt, retired U.S. Air Force colonel. And of course, Dr. Stephen Greer from the Disclosure Project.
My name is Charles I. Halt. I retired from the U.S. Air Force in 1991 as a colonel. In December 1980, early in the morning, several of our security policemen discovered strange lights in the forest in East Anglia, just outside the back gate of RAF Woodbridge. 3 patrolmen, Sergeant Peniston, Airman Burroughs, and Airman Cabanasac, actually were dispatched into the forest and approached a craft. They reported it being triangular, approximately 3 meters on a side, dark metallic in appearance with strange markings. They observed it for a period of time, and it very quickly and silently vanished at high speed. I took several security policemen with me. I was taken to the supposed site. While we were milling around trying to make sense of the whole thing, one of the individuals with me suddenly spotted something. Off through the forest was a bright, glowing object. The best way I can describe it, it looked like an eye. It was bright red with a dark center. It appeared to be winking. It would sort of wink. It was shedding something like molten metal. It was dripping off it. It silently moved through the trees, avoiding any contact. It bobbed up and down, and at one point it actually approached us. We tried to get closer. It receded out into the field, beyond the forest, and silently exploded into 5 white objects. Gone.
The New Mexico facilities include Los Alamos National Labs with underground connectors to the so-called Dulce area where the biological work is being done. We have tracked extraterrestrial vehicles in our solar system that were measuring 26 miles in diameter.
26 miles in diameter? And I almost forgot Norman Bergrun, ex-Lockheed, ex-NASA, and all that jazz. Listen to what he has to say.
Who built it, the craft?
I don't know who built it, but what I found out is these things inhabit Saturn. That's where I first discovered them, and they're proliferating. They're now Uranus and Jupiter. Wherever you see some rings now, why, that's one of these.
You see the craft?
Yeah, I call it a ring maker. Yeah.
Okay, you call it a ring maker.
Yeah. I worked at Lockheed. I had documents that were indeed top secret. And then I got tapped to go behind closed doors.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
When you're talking about the craft in the rings of Saturn, you're talking about something huge, right?
Yes.
Much bigger than we could even conceive of, I understand.
No one really in this country accepts the concept that at Saturn, those things are there.
Right.
People have got to be made to understand that those things are real.
Right.
In Arizona, near Fort Huachuca, which is Army Intelligence Headquarters, there is a UGB underground base where one of our witnesses, who will testify, worked on 9 separate extraterrestrial vehicles that had been down through advanced electromagnetic pulse weapons, and there are several different species of extraterrestrial biologicals stored at that facility.
What we're dealing with actually is humanity, and the elite, the secret societies, the Vatican, they're traitors to humanity, because the one at the very core that's pulling the strings is a different species. They're not the human race. They're called Homo capensis. They have been on Earth together with humanity for before this ice age.
I guess there are different types of grays and so on.
How did you see that evidence?
Well, at the, later on at S4, we viewed the autopsy film. And then the colonel said, what we've got in here is we're interviewing a gray alien.
All right, right there. How did you feel at that moment?
Well, I thought, boy, we had no idea we were going to see the real thing. All we saw was film.
You had to have a little bit of heart racing at that moment.
My boss was able to go in and had like a partial interview with him.
So what did this gray alien look like? Could you describe him a little bit?
This one looked a little bit oriental.
So I'm just wondering, if it looked almost human, what about this didn't look human?
No, it didn't look human as far as the skin tone and basically the shape of it and the size.
How was its head size compared with a normal human, for example?
Brain was kind of a little bit bigger. And some of the nose was very, very small. And the ears were just like holes. Mouth was very small.
Now, why were they bringing you out here at all, anyway, to see an alien? What was the point?
To go back and tell the president they actually had one.
So he did not know at this point
No.
if there was an alien at S4?
No.
I named 5 different species here. I'm aware of more now. As a matter of fact, I saw a document just a few days ago that mentioned 20. And I think you, Mr. Chairman, were interested in some of the places they might come from. And I have in here Zeta Reticuli, R-E-T-I-C-U-L-I, Reticuli, the Pleiades, Orion, Andromeda, and the Altair star system.
Canadians.
ETs on Earth at this present time. And at least 2 of them probably working with the United States government. Other species that I learned about not too long ago was called the tall whites. At the gunnery range at Indian Springs in Nevada, and these tall whites were living on United States Air Force property and working in cooperation with the United States Air Force and sharing technology with them.
There are individuals, and they're not humans. They do not have the same kind of DNA that we do. And I can tell you what I know about them. They're very mathematical. Their average intelligence is about 150. And they do not have creativity. They're not emotional.
But given your whistleblower status with the World Bank, do you think that by promoting or discussing these types of theories hurts your credibility and all in the minds of some of the people who may have first heard of you through the whistleblower status at the World Bank?
I'll tell you what, I've gotten a fair amount of feedback like that. And I'll tell you what I say to these people. I say that it has been an incredible experience to have made it this far. And the number one thing that I've learned in that process is to trust my own intuition. because that has really served me very well. And my intuition is telling me that this is the time to tell people this.
I know that's right.
I feel much better having talked about it. I kind of feel like there's a load off my shoulders.
Really?
Because I had an awful lot of secrets that I had kept over the years.
Now my interest is in full disclosure. And my only caveat is I think probably I would say 95 to 98% full disclosure. I know of one or two things that I'm not sure should be in the public domain, at least yet. They will be someday, I'm sure, but not maybe immediately. But just as children survive the idea of the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus when they become adult, I think that tax-paying citizens are quite capable of accepting the new and broader reality that we live in a cosmos teeming with life of various sorts. The fact that some other civilizations are more advanced than we are may be humbling, but that could be a necessary step in our survival. And finally, they need the technology for clean energy. And it exists, and it's being kept secret by the same vested interests who control our destiny. This will require a paradigm shift in American attitudes. It involves a de facto renunciation of the plan for a new American energy and the adoption of a pledge of cooperation with all humankind to build the kind of world which we are collectively capable of. Young people everywhere need to be challenged by a noble cause and lead the way in the transformation to the new reality that we have to live in harmony with our celestial neighbors, as well as seeking peace on earth. In a word, we have to become spiritual beings and practice the one tenet that the world's major religions have in common, and that is the Golden Rule.
Fucking stoned.